Okay, so before I even get started, lest this be taken as a both sides have good arguments type of diatribe, it's pronounced GIF, god damn it. This isn't a regional pronunciation thing. It's not a to each their own thing. There's a right way and a wrong way, and when you say GIF, we don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm fine with regional variations and even variations within individuals so long as we remain mutually intelligible, but that is not the case here. Now, before I go any further, I want to assure you that this is about religion eventually, but for right now, it's about how it's fucking pronounced GIF. And I bring it up because I came across another online debate about it and made the mistake of perusing said debate. And I'm hearing all the same arguments everybody uses when this issue comes up. The guy who invented it pronounces it GIF, says one side. That's a peanut butter, says the other. When G's or C's are followed by an I or E, they're usually pronounced as soft, says one side. Gift, gills, girl, gimmick, gigawatt, says the other. When people say, did you get the GIF I sent you? I hear gift I sent you, replies the first. When people say, I'll send it to you in a GIF, I think they'll mean it'll be soon, counters the second, and so on. And then invariably we come to this argument, right? The G in GIF stands for graphic, not graphic. And it seems like a pretty good argument. This is an argument I've used, but this time when I encountered it, I tried to peer at it through the eyes of the GIF crowd, and I realized that it's absolute shit. This argument makes no sense. This is not a general rule in English, right? That we use the root word's sound when we pronounce out acronyms. If somebody was pronouncing scuba as scuba, we wouldn't be swayed by the argument that he's not referring to self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, would we? Right? And I'm not going to lie, that realization kind of fucked me up because until then, that had always struck me as sort of the definitive argument, or at least, you know, the best one that the GIF side had. And when I realized it was a shit argument, I didn't change my mind. Now, the reason I didn't change my mind is obvious, mostly because I was already right, so I didn't have to. But more to the point, it's because I didn't choose my pronunciation based on the root word, right? When I saw GIF written out, I said GIF in my head. When I heard other people talking about it, they invariably said GIF. So the first time I ever encountered a GIF person, it sounded dumb. That's why I'm in the camp I'm in. It's also why you're in the camp you're in. Or maybe not. Maybe somebody in the world actually did change their pronunciation along the way. And if it was because they found that graphic argument convincing, I feel real bad poking such a big hole in it now. But at least the vast majority of us are on one side or the other for no logical reason. That's just the side we started on, so it's the side we defend. And look, I cannot be clear about this enough. It's pronounced fucking GIF, right? I am not saying both sides have equal claim to the pronunciation here. The majority of people say GIF, and outside of proper nouns, pronunciation is determined by the majority. It's also better since GIF isn't already a word that means very short period of time or brand of peanut butter. But I am saying that most of us got there arbitrarily. The fact that most of us wound up in the same place stops it from being arbitrary, of course, and the need for communication kind of demands that we settle this. Right? Either that or the current trends continue for another couple of decades and we saddle our generations with some weird ass word like GIF or GIF. But I digress because that's not the point. The point is the way that arguments work. See, I chose the graphic argument not because that's the one that convinced me. I didn't even know what it stood for when I started pronouncing it GIF. It's just the best sounding argument that I'd heard on my side. So when that argument was dismantled, I didn't feel like I needed a new opinion. I just needed a new argument. And I'm sure most of you who maybe relied on that same argument feel the same way, right? It's not because you're bad thinkers. It's not because you're obstinate. It's because that's how arguments work. And it behooves us to keep that in mind when we're dismantling religious arguments. See, I told you I'd get there. And I know we already know that, but it's really easy to lose track of that in real time. Right? Some religious person gives you their best argument, you rip it to fucking shreds, and then they just give you their next argument. Or walk away with their minds unchanged. And we grow frustrated because we never get to see the part where they actually start looking for that better argument, find it, have some other atheist knock that one down too, find an even better one, have another atheist knock that one down, realize they have no good arguments, and maybe change their mind. I mean, that does happen, right? Like, we've met people to whom that has happened. We just don't get to fucking see it. Now, I want to be clear about the limits of my analogy here. The arguments for God are nowhere near as good as the ones on either side of the GIF-GIF debate. An argument that GIF is a superior pronunciation, as insane and misguided as that might seem, is still way more plausible than the existence of a God. At least there's no way in which the GIF pronunciation is self-contradicting. So you are certainly more justified in your frustration with religious debaters than, for instance, the frustration that people who pronounce it GIF feel as they listen to this diatribe. But to expect a radical change of opinion based on knocking down an argument, even their best argument, even their best series of arguments, ignores the purpose that arguments serve. Nobody in any religious debate has ever offered up the thing that actually convinced them, right? And they might offer up the thing that reaffirmed their conviction after a period of doubt, but nobody has ever said, I'd also like to present how trustworthy my parents seemed when I was 6 in a formal debate, right? Nobody ever said, in rebuttal, I would like to point out how scary dying is. And that's not because they're dishonest about the roots of their beliefs. I mean, they are dishonest about the roots of their beliefs, but that's not why they don't use them as arguments. They're not even trying to tell you what convinced them. They're trying to present the argument they think has the highest likelihood of convincing you. And like I said, in real time, that can be frustrating as hell. It feels like you won, but you didn't get the trophy. But one way to dampen that disappointment is to remember what the point of the debate was. Not just because it's going to help you to be more patient, but also because it's going to help to remind you just how thoroughly you actually won. You'd already won before you dismantled the argument. You won just by not being convinced by it. Hell, they would never have offered it up to you if they thought it could be dismantled. So no matter how petulant they seem in the moment, keep in mind that you just beat them 42-0 in a game of 21.